Well, hello class. Thanks for joining me for today's daily briefing. As you can see, I'm freshly shaven for Easter weekend. And today's lesson, friends, is going to be about why you should never believe everything you hear. One of my favorite proverbs is Proverbs 18:17, which says, "The first to state his case seems right until another comes to examine him." That proverb is the wisdom of the scriptures reminding us that things often sound good when we first hear them until we do the work of sorting out the true from the false and hearing all sides of the story. So with that in mind, I want to give you a little lesson in why social media can be unhelpful at times like this. Let me introduce you to Mark Levine. Mark is a city council member in the city of New York. In fact, he's the chair of the New York City Council Health Committee. Here is what Mark Levine tweeted just Monday of this week, and I quote, "Soon we'll start temporary interment. This likely will be done by using a New York City park for burials. Yes, you read that right. Trenches will be dug for 10 caskets in a line. It will be done in a dignified, orderly, and temporary manner, but it will be tough for New Yorkers to take." As you might imagine, that claim and that statement lit up social media. People were posting on Facebook pictures of Holocaust mass graves. Here's a New York City Council member, the chair of the health committee, someone who clearly is in the know of what's actually happening on the ground in New York City, telling us they're going to dig mass graves in New York City parks. This is dramatic news. This is alarming news. And everybody on social media started to share this everywhere until some reporters started to ask some questions and say, hold on, I haven't heard the governor say that or the mayor. Let's cross-examine. And so later that day at Andrew Cuomo's press conference, a reporter asked him if he had heard this story and if he could verify it. Here's what Governor Cuomo had to say.
There's the notion that the city would maybe be burying these COVID bodies in parks in New York City. Wondering, one, have you heard of that? And two, is there any way that the state can lend assistance with managing these bodies? And what do you think about that?
I have heard nothing about that. I've heard a lot of wild rumors, but I have not heard anything about the city burying people in parks.
So here is what seems to be a reputable source, a New York City council member, sending something out that's entirely categorically false and not true. And this Mark Levine later tried to sort of hedge his bets and say, hey, what I meant to say was this is a contingency, and if it gets really, really bad and nothing else works, we might have to do this. You'll notice the tone of what he actually said was, soon we'll start doing this. Here's why I'm sharing this. I'm sharing it because it's very, very important at this moment in our national history and in our lives that we stay grounded in reality and pay attention to what's true. And this is a great moment for us to learn to practice biblical wisdom, which reminds us, hey, let's always be quick to listen, slow to speak. Let's get all the facts. Let's make sure we're working with real data. And especially when you're trying to pay attention to news, don't assume that just because it seems like a source is credible, that they are. Now, here's a different kind of news, but something that's additionally helpful in this wisdom category. The model that everyone has been using to sort of project and think about what's going to happen with the coronavirus is a model out of the University of Washington. These are good, solid mathematical modeling researchers. However, here's what they tweeted out just on the weekend, on Sunday. Based on new data from US states, our estimates for the number of total hospital beds needed for COVID-19 patients has dropped from 262,092 on April 2nd to 140,823 on April 5th. That's a change of 46%. Not only that, friends, but just this morning, they updated this model again and changed this number to 94,000. What that's saying is, what they were telling us a week ago was that the outbreak was going to be 3 times as bad as it actually is right now. Now again, that's the nature of modeling. The nature of modeling is we're always working with variables that can change. But here's why it's important for you to hear that and understand that. Because much of the media frenzy that you're paying attention to, many of the headlines are generated by the worst case scenarios that the models make possible, right? Here's what could happen. It could be up to 200,000 people will die. Every day that these numbers get revised and that the models get changed, Number one, it's a reason for more hope and more optimism. Number two, it's an indication that what we're doing is working. And number three, it's a reminder that you can't believe everything you hear or every interpretation that is put forth about the data, okay? Now, don't hear this as me saying the models are terrible and they don't work and they're dumb. I'm not saying that. I'm saying wisdom understands a model is a model. And so it patiently and resolutely does what needs to be done. In this case, we were right to implement all the things we've implemented thus far. However, it also wisely pays attention to how things get updated and changed as new data comes out. And it's quick to, or slow, to make judgments based on headlines, all right? So you and I live in a world where every media outlet right now pays their bills by getting clicks. Remember that. Because the headlines all want you to click. And so the headlines are going to continue to report. Here's how bad things are. Here's how terrible things are. Here's what a big nightmare we're in. And again, it is a sad situation and some things are actually very alarming. But it's never quite as bad as the headlines say. And the good news in the statistical data is we're trending in a healthy direction right now. So I know this daily briefing has had very little to do with Easter week, very little to do with what we're doing as a church. It's been very focused on this, but the implication and application here is I want to help you understand how the wisdom of Proverbs applies in a moment in a situation like this. Now, before I end this briefing, I'll tell you this. As you've seen on the emails that have come out, tomorrow night, Friday night, and Saturday night, I want to invite you to join me on YouTube Live at 7 p.m. for about a 15 to 20 minute devotional, where I'll just be thinking about the story of the crucifixion and of Easter weekend. I realize none of you want to join another Zoom meeting right now. You're all tired of everybody doing everything on YouTube Live, and I get it. But this is a way for us to meditate on Scripture together, and again, in this sort of odd moment that we're in, to in some way be connected, even though we're really not. All right? So I'll see you on YouTube Live Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night at 7 p.m., and I'll see you tomorrow for another daily briefing.